Okay, here we go.
We can pin it or something?
You can close it up here. Okay, so you can have the width, but you also have the narrowness.
Sure. Like this?
Yeah. Either open it up, or the other
I don't know
thing
how
is...
close actually on me, but you could probably...
One naturally doesn't expect a woman to take an active part in this controversy. One might call it a civil war that is raging all about us. Oh, then you're no doubt familiar with the disgraceful way these gentlemen of the people have seen fit to treat me, the infamous abuse they've dared to heap upon me.
Well, I must say you gave as good as you got.
I did indeed, and I'm proud of it. Now that I have tasted blood, they'll soon find out that I'm not the man to turn the other cheek. Oh, but why discuss painful subject?
No, dear Professor, don't let us talk about it.
I'd rather talk about you. How are you getting on at Rosmersholm now that our poor
Well,
tighter? Yeah, I was going to want it.
We have a lot of deadly pauses.
Well, there's one that's completely...
And we're kind of lost, but that's okay, we recovered in text.
Seriously, now every time we get over.
We need a much cleaner denouement there, Carmen, at the end.
I did that, Tim. That was complete.
Boom, boom.
I've never done it like that.
Like a politician, like with the pride, right? Almost like a peacock, you know,
Yeah.
really have your feathers. Well, who would have thought that I become a bit of a firebrand at my old age? You've always been, oh, well, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, a bit of that false modesty, right? And that will add a very interesting dimension, initial dimension to the character, which then we have sets up a sharper change towards the end. So try to play around with dead spaces. So Carmen, when you're entering,
Yes.
don't waste all your ammunition with words here, so that then you have a huge pause while you're sitting down in the flower.
Right.
But rather,
Yeah.
try to sync more the text with the action, the physical action. Because you will, the mask is one thing, right? So you will have that lightness and that coquettishness. And now, that seems to be most suitable, suggesting marriage. The mask changes. All he's suitable, right?
I see.
Right? So what happens is that, blah, 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 and that seems to me most suitable. Well, and then when her mask changes, right? Now she has to become, right? So it's all in the tempo. When her mask changes, right? Now, right away we change the subject. Oh, there's a matter to discuss with you, Rosmer.
That time she and then I follow them and I pick up.
Yeah, exactly. Then you think, oh, I wish we would.
Yes.
We've pulled the thing out of the
Yes.
fire, okay? So now, this moment has to stay within the audience. Something here is written in the state of Denmark. You want to try that?
Sure. For my part, I would only be too happy for you to take. Or perhaps I should mention such things.
What do you mean?
I would only be too happy for you to take Piovesan's place.
I have the only place I want, Professor.
Yes, for all practical purposes, yes. But not as
Shame
far-
on you, Professor Kroll. You shouldn't joke about such things.
I dare say our good Rosmer feels he's had enough of married life, but still.
Don't be so absurd, Professor.
But still. Tell me, how old are you now, Miss West? If you'll forgive the question.
I'm ashamed to admit it. But I'm past 29. I'm in my 30th year.
And Rosmer, how old is he? Let me see. 5 years younger than I. That seems to me most suitable. Ah, there's a matter I wish to discuss.
Good, that's it.
Something.
Now, a longer pause give it an extra beat there.
All right, I'll give it one.
Okay, give it an extra beat. And the other thing is, the movement in this exchange, what is not clear. Is it there?
Okay.
I don't know, this might be a little rough, I don't know, but...
It doesn't matter, just go with it. Go with it.
Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, dear. Are you going out?
Yes.
It's such beautiful weather.
You didn't come in to see me this morning.
No, I didn't. Not today.
Aren't you going to in the future?
I don't know yet, dear.
Has anything come from me?
The county news came, yes.
The county news?
There it is on the table.
Is there anything in it?
Yes.
Well, why didn't you send it up?
I thought you'd see it soon enough.
Indeed. Where there is guilt.
Stop talking about guilt.
You know nothing about guilt, Rebecca. But I.
You least of all.
And Miss Helseth?
No.
Oh, yes, sir. The mill race.
Rosmer. Not just now, Mrs. Helseth.
Well, I suppose I had better start laying the table, miss.
Yes, do. Mr. Rosmer should be back in a few minutes.
Isn't that Mr. Rosmer out there now?
Where? Yes.
You see, miss? Beginning to use the path by the mill again.
He used it the day before yesterday, too. But I wonder what the
Will
hell...
you bring yourself to cross the footbridge?
It's just what I want to see. No. He's turning back today again. He's going by the upper road, the long way round.
Good Lord. You can't blame him for not wanting to cross that bridge, miss. When you think of what happened
They
there.
certainly cling to their dead at Rosmersholm.
Do you know what I think, miss?
Hmm?
I think it's the dead that cling to Rosmersholm.
How do you mean the dead?
It's as if they kept trying to come back. As if they couldn't quite free themselves from those they left behind.
What an idea. Put that into your head.
That would account for the white horse, you see.
What is all this about a white horse, Mrs. Helseth?
It's no use talking to you about it, miss. You don't believe such things.
Do you believe them?
You don't make fun of me. Look, isn't that Mr. Rosmer on the path again?
Let me see. No. Why, it's Professor Kroll.
Yes, so it is.
What a funny thing. He seems to be coming here.
He makes no bones about going over the footbridge, even if she was his own sister. Well, I suppose I better take it.
Well, what a surprise. Welcome, my dear Professor.
Many thanks. I will not disturb you.
You? How can you say such things?
Charming, Miss Adams. Is Rosmer up in his room?
No, he's out for a walk. He's been gone a bit longer than usual, but he's sure to be here any minute. How about Won't you sit down till he comes?
Many thanks. What nice things you've done to the old place. It's all so cheerful. Flowers everywhere.
Mr. Rosmer's very fond of flowers.
And you are too, I
Oh,
suppose.
yes, I am. I find them very soothing. We had to do without them, though, till quite recently.
Yes. On account of Piovesan, the scent seemed to overpower her.
Their colors, too, they upset her terribly.
Yes, I remember. Well, how are things going out here?
Quietly and peacefully as usual. The days slip by one day just like the last. But what about you? Why, I hope Mrs. Kroll is well.
Oh, my dear Miss West, I'd rather not talk about my affairs and family life. One must expect complications, especially in times like these.
You haven't come to see us once, all during the holidays. Why don't you tell me?
I didn't want to make a nuisance of myself.
Why, I can't tell you how we miss you.
Besides, I've been
But
away.
only for a couple of weeks. I hear you've been attending a lot of meetings. You've been going in for poverty.
Yes, and what do you say to that? Who would have ever thought that I'd become a political firebrand at my age?
Well, you've always been a bit of a firebrand, Professor Kroll.
Yes, in family life for my own amusement. But this is a very serious matter. You don't happen to read any of these radical newspapers by any chance?
I must admit, dear Professor, that
Well, as far as you're concerned, there's no reason
No,
why.
that's what I feel. I like to know what's going on, to keep up with the times.
Certainly, one naturally doesn't expect a woman to take an active part in this controversy. One might call it a civil war that is raging all about us. And then you are no doubt familiar with the disgraceful way these gentlemen of the people have seen fit to treat me, the infamous abuse they've dared to heap upon me.
I must say you give as good as you got.
I did indeed, and I am proud of it. Now that I have tasted blood, they'll soon find out that I'm not the man to turn the other cheek. Oh, but what's gusts? Painful stuff.
No, dear Professor, don't let us talk about it.
I'd rather talk about you. How are you getting on at Rosmersholm now that our poor bear?
Well, enough. It seems so empty here without her. We miss her in so many ways, but apart from that...
Tell me, do you plan to go on staying here? Permanently, I mean?
I haven't really given it much thought. I've grown so accustomed to this place, where it's almost as if I, too, belonged here.
Oh, but you do belong
And
here.
as long as Mr. Rosmer needs me, as long as I can be of any help or comfort to him, I feel I should remain.
It is a wonderful thing, Miss West, for a woman to give up the best years of her life to others as you have.
What else had I to live for? I was devoted to Beata. Poor darling. She was in such need of tenderness and care.
How kind you are to speak of her with so much understanding.
Dear Professor, you reassure me. You can say that with such sincerity if you had any resentment in your heart toward me.
Resentment? What would you
Well,
think?
I didn't mean natural that you should resent a stranger presiding over things at Rosmersholm.
What on
But you have no such feelings, have you? Thank you, dear Professor. Many, many thanks.
What on earth put that into your head?
Well, you've been to see us so seldom lately, I began to be a little frightened.
Well, my dear Miss West, you are mistaken. After all, things haven't really changed. You've been in full charge here long before poor Beata died.
Yes.
All the same, for my part, I would only be too happy to see you. But perhaps I shouldn't mention such things.
What do you mean?
I would only be too happy for you to take poor Beata's place.
I have the only place I want, Professor.
For all practical purposes, yes. But not
Shame on you, Professor Kroll. You shouldn't joke about such things.
I dare say our good Rosmer feels he's had enough of married life, but still,
Don't be so absurd, Professor.
tell me, how old are you now, Miss West? You'll forgive the question.
I'm ashamed to admit it. But I'm past 29. I'm in my 30th year.
And Rosmer, how old is he? 5 years younger than I. That seems to me most suitable. There's a matter I wish to discuss with Rosmer.
Yes, do that. I wish you would. How kind and good you are.
Am I? Well, that's not what I hear at home.
Mr. Rosmer, just look who's here.
Miss Helseth told me. Welcome back to this house, my dear Kroll, my dear, dear friend. I was certain things would straighten out between us.
My dear fellow, don't tell me you've been imagining things too.
Isn't it wonderful, Rosmer? It was all imagination.
Is that really true? Oh, then what made you stay away from me?
I didn't want to be a constant reminder of those unhappy years that have pulled me out of tragic death.
How good of you. But then you always were considerate. Still, it wasn't necessary to stay away on that account. Let's sit here. No, I assure you, the thought of Beata isn't painful to me. But she seems so close to us. We speak of her every day.
Do you really?
Yes, indeed we do.
It's naturally now. We were both so devoted to her, and Miss West and I did everything in our power to help her. We're confident of that. There's no room for self-reproach. That's why we can think of her with a sense of peace, a quiet tenderness.
What splendid people you are. That settles it. I shall come out and visit you every single day.
Be sure and keep your word.
You know, I regret even this short interruption in our friendship. But ever since we've known each other, you've been my chief advisor. Since my student days, in fact.
Yes, I've always been proud of it. But is there anything in particular?
Oh, there are a number of things I am most anxious to discuss with you. I'd like to talk to you quite frankly. Heart. But to heart.
It would do you good, wouldn't it, Rosmer? It must be such a comfort between old friends.
And I have a great deal to discuss with you. You know, of course, that I've begun to take an active part in politics.
I know. How did that come about?
I was forced into it. I had no choice. It is no longer possible to stand by idly looking on now that the radical party has so unfortunately come into power. It is high time that something was done about it. I have convinced some of our friends in town to band together to take some constructive action. I tell you, it's high time.
Perhaps it might even be a little late.
Oh, unquestionably, we should have stemmed the tide long ago. That would have been far better. But who could have foreseen those to happen? Not I, certainly. But I can tell you that my eyes are open now. You'd never believe it. But this seditious element has actually gained a foothold in the school.
For the school? Oh, you surely don't mean your school?
Yes, I tell you. What do you say to that? And it has come to my knowledge that over the past 6 months, the senior boys, a considerable number of them at any rate, have become members of a secret society and subscribed to Mortensgaard's paper.
The Beacon?
Yes, nice mental sustenance for the future government officials, is it not? The most distressing thing is that the most gifted students that have taken part in this conspiracy against me, the only ones who have kept away from it all are the dunces at the bottom of the class.
Does this really affect you so very deeply, Professor Kroll?
Does it affect to see the work of a lifetime thwarted and undermined? All this may be endurable, perhaps, but there is something worse. Are you sure?
No, of course.
But a spirit of revolt has actually crept into my own house, into my own quiet home. The harmony of my family life has been utterly destroyed.
What do you mean, into your home?
What could have happened, dear Professor?
You'd never believe it, but my own children. In short, I find that my son is the ringleader in this conspiracy, and my daughter has embroidered a red portfolio to keep the beacon in.
Your own home, it seems impossible.
Yeah, doesn't it? The very home of duty and obedience, where at my insistence order and decency have always reigned supreme.
How does your wife take all this?
That is the most astonishing thing about it. My wife, who's always shared my opinions on all subjects, who has undeviatingly upheld my principles, seems to take in the children's point of view in this affair. She tells me that I'm to blame, that I'm too harsh, but yet surely there are times of discipline. Well, you see how my house is divided against itself. I naturally say as little about it as possible. These things are best kept quiet.
Tell him.
No, not this evening.
Yes, tell him now.
Well, my dear Rosmer, now you know how the spirit of the times has cast its shadow over me, over my domestic as well as official life. I can hardly be expected not to resist this dangerous and destructive force, this anarchy. I shall fight it with every weapon I can lay my hands on. I shall fight it by word and deed.
What do you expect to gain by that?
I shall have at least done my duty as a citizen, and I hope the duty of every right thinking man with an act of patriotism to do likewise. This was my main reason for wanting to come to talk to you this evening.
Oh, but my dear Kroll, how do you mean?
You must stand by your old friends and join our ranks and march with us to battle.
Professor Kroll. You know how Mr. Rosmer dislikes that sort of thing.
Well, then he's going to have to get over his dislike. You've let yourself get out of touch with things, Rosmer. You've buried yourself away out here, delving into the past, into your genealogical research. Oh, what be it for me to scoff at such things? But this is no time for these pursuits. You have no conception of what is going on throughout the country. It's scarcely an established principle that hasn't been attacked. It would be a colossal task to set things right again.
Yes, I quite agree, but that sort of work isn't at all in my line.
Besides, I think Mr. Rosmer has gradually acquired